What's up, everybody? Welcome back to, whatever this is. I guess it's the first video of this series, so I'm not really welcoming you back to any. You know what? You get the idea. Today, I want to talk about something that might be relatable to you. Maybe it's not. Maybe it kind of is. I don't know. But that's relationships. And more specifically, the communication part within a relationship. Communication is one of the most important things when it comes to any kind of relationship. It could be a platonic one, it could be a romantic one, it could be a professional one, it could be like a whole friend group, any kind of them. It's just super, super important. But without communication, that entire relationship will fall apart. It's not really like a opinion, really. It will. It will fall apart. Lack of communication is so frequent, and it's kind of crazy because from like a logical point of view, you're like, oh, this will just happen. This is something that you need to do in order to keep things healthy. And it shouldn't be a problem, right? But it happens a lot more often than people think it does. When one person doesn't really communicate, or both of them kind of communicate, or some of them do it really poorly, or they don't even communicate at all, it just makes things a lot harder than they have to be. Small situations become much bigger than they need to be, and it ends up hurting everyone unless they're solved in an extremely sensitive manner. But all of that can be avoided in like a situation where you don't really like when someone's doing something. You can just go up and tell them, hey, I don't really like when you're doing this thing, and I'd appreciate it if you stop it. It's just such an easy thing to do, right? But the problem is the whole thing, this little solution I've given you here, this easy solution, doesn't factor in the biggest thing that's pretty difficult to understand in almost anybody. And that is emotions. Emotions are just so hard to describe. It's like what you're feeling and how you're feeling and why you're feeling, but it's all of that put into one thing, and it's about you, and only you fully 100% understand it. And it's honestly, like when you try to describe it to anybody, it's not easy. It's not easy. Anyways, going back to communication. When it's lacking, it's just going to make things harder. But when you communicate, it requires confrontation. Now, confrontation has a very negative connotation to it because, well, usually when you use the word confrontation, it's when you go to discuss an issue with somebody. It's something that's like not really the best of conversation topics. It's not super positive. It's like, hey, I'm going to go and confront this person because you have an issue with them. But sometimes it could be something that you need to discuss that could be important that's affecting you. It could have like a negative topic, but it's not like always something like a fight or something. But with all of that, people just don't like to do that. It's such a stressful interaction, and the easier thing to do, instead of going and talking about it and having to think about all the things that could potentially come from this interaction, is just to let it go. Leave it be. Just don't do anything about it. But honestly, if you do that, if you just let it go, it could become worse. And in most chances, it will. And you can kind of see how this starts to snowball into such a mess. You have an issue with somebody or whoever it could be. Again, it could be your friend, your significant other, anybody, and you don't tell them anything. And that thing is bothering you, and you want to talk to them about it, but you don't want to talk to them about it because that requires confrontation. And by letting it go, that thing that is bothering you continues to stay there and not make any sort of progress. And you aren't doing anything about it, and the other person who you expect to do something about it isn't doing anything either, and that will just continue to build your frustration within you, and in the end, by not doing anything, there's no solution ever reached. And again, we bring this back to what's just so important, and that is communication. Communication is the backbone of any kind of relationship. It's so important, it's kind of taken for granted because of how simple of a thing it is. And again, when you just think about it from an outside point of view, you're just like, shouldn't that be normal? Isn't that just a thing that should happen? Yes. Outside point of view, of course it is. But then when you're in it, you're like, I understand this situation a lot better. I will do whatever it takes to kind of keep this as minimal confrontation as possible, right? And then you'll potentially fall into a fat mess. Communication is super important. It's a backbone. It's the key to keeping a lot of relationships stable, happy, and in general, just knowing the status of what it could be. By communicating, you can understand where each person is, and it'll kind of give you a better perspective of the other person as well. I started this little series thing on something that's kind of heavy, honestly. It's not a really simple topic. It's something that many relationships go through and deal with, and it's not easy, but it is something that is extremely important. Thank you for watching, everybody, and I will see you in the next one.